Państwu. Zapraszam wszystkich.
Welcome to all. I would encourage you to take places. Apologies for a slight delay. This is the time we should begin. My name is Julia Pierna, and I represent a research institute. I'm very happy for you being here and online. The date is not most fortunate. I won't speak all that much. I will be back here in a moment at the stage and we'll discuss the reasons for organizing the conference. But at this moment, I'd like to hand over for official opening of the conference about media education to Ms. Magdalena Wilczyńska, who is the director of the media space security director. Let us invite her to the stage now. Welcome to all. I'd like to welcome you here on behalf of NASK at this conference. The date, as it was mentioned, was hard to arrange, but I'm happy that we can meet and talk through the topics together. I believe that NASK has been working since 2004 about prevention and training on cyber security, particularly vis-à-vis youths and children. I want to underscore the fact that we coordinate the Safe Internet and Dajemy Dzieciom Siłę Foundation, which is giving children the strength. And we wish to deliver real results, tangible results. We wish to respond online, so to speak, to changing threats. We've been speaking about infrastructure threats early. Now we are talking about cyberspace, let's say, hygiene. In other words, hate speech in something, also AI-driven false fake news. My main concern is that we, and particularly young people, children, not receive these threats as something that's obvious that we need to measure up to, but that we act against it, particularly through media information. And I believe that the entire project and today's meeting in particular is of incredible importance in terms of prevention of the threats. Media information is very close to my heart, and we can achieve much more than we have already, but we need to do it together. And I'm very satisfied that there are teachers here that have incredible important contribution to make. I'd like to express my appreciation to the entire consortium member body for coordination and engagement in the project. I will particularly mention Julia, and I do hope that our deliberations will be fruitful today. We will share practical information and learn how to prevent all of the various threats in an efficient and effective manner. Thank you very much. The phone is. I'd like to invite Ms. Kiełkiewicz of Creative Europe Polska. She is engaged in EU-funded projects, particularly in Creative Europe EU-funded project. She's also an expert in projects of the Minister of Culture and National Heritage. We invite you to the stage, madam. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and I'm truly honored to join this group of people and to be one of those opening this conference entitled Make It Clear, which touches on incredibly important matter of media education and prevention of disinformation and misinformation. I'd like to also mention the project partners from Latvia and Romania. I'm very satisfied that this has become an international project because the subject matter is obviously international. This Creative Europe program, which I have been running with our Creative Europe Desk Polska team, contributes hopefully to development of audiovisuals and funding of projects such as Make It Clear and other projects which are pan-European. The Creative Europe program also contributes to media audiovisual action plan implementation. This is media and audiovisual sector that supports renewal of the visual sector. Creative Europe also acts based on European Democracy Action Plan objectives aimed at strengthening freedom and pluralism in media and skills of using media. In 2022, in the second year of the current second edition of Creative Europe, in the component sector, we had the new software application segment, which prevents misinformation and disinformation. And as mentioned, from the this Make It Clear is a project that made it for this segment, and I'm happy that this is implemented by Polish leader NASK Research Institute. Under Creative Europe program, we are supporting citizenry in critical understanding and use of media. And this tool that we're developing is fights misinformation, disinformation. And we foster exchange of information and best practices in terms of media use. This media role of media use has increased importance of it since Ukraine being attacked, and the use of media is becoming critical, particularly digital media. Support around media literacies provides for cross-border initiatives in terms of skills in using media across Europe in changing the landscape of media in various age groups. Another media literacy program will be starting in 2026 or 7. And meanwhile, we will be monitoring a center for monitoring of digital media. You must have heard about this initiative, but let me add a few words on this. The main objective of the European Center for Observation of these media aims to support battling false media across Europe. This is a platform that facilitates collaboration, exchange of information, practices, and research between those who check facts and verify facts throughout Europe. The mission is based on economy, pluralism, and trust to traditional media, but also professional journalism, which is one of the great key strengths that can prevent disinformation across Europe. Artificial intelligence, chatbots will continue playing even more important role in hiding and generating false fake news, cybersecurity and data analysis will be of great importance in order to identify misinformation and disinformation. This is by way of introduction. I wish you interesting conference, many inspiring discussions, and welcome in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for opening of the conference. I said I would be back again, and I have done so at this moment. I'd like to invite Ms. Claudia Oprescu to the stage as well. Welcome, and please come forward. We would like to jointly speak on behalf of our consortium and open this conference together. Before we do that, a word about Claudia. Claudia is a psychotherapist, coordinator of the Romanian Center for Safe Internet that's worked with Save the Children Romania, acting for the benefit of safety of children in the internet. We also have the representatives of the third party engaged in implementation of the Make It Clear program, Madam Anita and Ms. Biene Waldeman. Anita is coordinator of the youth panel at the Latvian Internet Center, and she's worked for media education and young people. Ms. Waldeman is a doctor of humanities, well known in Latvia in the media, and has a number of projects in media, and has been involved in the materials which we've prepared through the project. Why this project? Why this consortium? Both NASC and the Latvian Internet Association and Save the Children Romania have collaborated for many years in the past, and we're a member of the INCEL European network that brings together centers for safe internet, and we've been undertaking preventive actions, educational projects, and providing psychological support to users, particularly fighting against sexual abuse of children. And we have jointly decided to expand our collaboration, and hence the media education component. The objective here is to educate young people and children to be able to handle misinformation, disinformation, and we have been able to tap into European Commission's funding for that purpose. Aim is to develop media competences, critical thinking among children and youth, filtering of information, understanding the information surrounding them, and also skills in verifying information and content. What we have developed through the project and what we plan is something that we will have our Claudia speak to. Thank you very much.
I'm so happy to be here. I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone being here today. Thank you, online and offline. A huge thank you to our incredible Make It Clear team. Their expertise, kindness, knowledge and passion were essential to developing the project resources. Thank you so much for having us beside you. Now very briefly, I will present our resources, the key resources and activities of this project. So, what we did and what we'll do in the next months. We are developing educational materials in 5 languages: Polish, Latvian, Romanian, English, and Ukrainian, covering various topics related to media education. These topics include civic participation, developing a critical approach, recognizing the context, reacting to the hate speech or extremism, protecting oneself, sharing private information responsible, distinguish facts from opinions, and understanding the role of the media in youngsters' lives. Also, our project includes engaging lesson modules for children and teenagers. But we go beyond these modules. We offer the innovative methods for teachers in order for them to differentiate the learning, to have a personalized learning approach and teaching approach in their classrooms. We also created a board game called Digital Brainiacs. This game aimed to educate through play, fun, and promote the safe internet habits for youngsters. So combining fun and education element, this Digital Brainiacs game can empower young children to navigate in the digital world with confidence. Moreover, our project involves the active participation of young people, some of whom are with us today. We collaborated with them during an international event called Creaton. This event helped us understand what media campaigns resonate with them, how they consume the internet content, and how can handle disinformation. Lastly, we are planning an education and informational campaign to highlight the need for critical and inclusive use of digital knowledges. So today, at our conference, we'll discuss the importance of the media education in better understanding and filter information. So thank you again for joining us today. Let's explore some amazing tools and techniques. Thank you so much.
Bardzo dziękuję. Proszę
I also thank you very much. Our conference is officially open now. And before us, presentations as well as panel discussions. I will be announcing the speakers and our partners of the Media Association, representatives of both the teachers' body, both Poland, Romania, Latvia, and Lithuania, about the things that Claudia mentioned. So let me first invite Professor Jacek Pyżalski. I believe many of you, or most of you, know him well. He is a media education expert from Association of Media project, and he has been an initiator of score of projects, media-related projects, author of the first scientific book on abuse. Thank you very much.
I have additionally 3 minutes, 33 minutes instead of 30. It sounds like an impossible task for me to perform. Bring you closer to media literacy, how it developed. I started tackling it approximately 16 years ago. It may seem that now I am the ultimate expert and I can share a lot, but actually I don't know it all. I seem to be knowing less and less, and this seems to be associated with the development of media generally. So generally, media education seems to be keeping up with the ever-changing situation. You cannot just determine everything for once and all. You have to keep renewing it all the time. So everybody who deals with it has no option but to keep renewing it, change the approach. You have to keep wondering whether whatever you have to say is still up to date or maybe it has to be amended. But I'll try to do it the best I can. I'll start with sharing some general comments, and later on I'll try to bring you closer to things that seem to be down to earth, something that you can easily put into your daily practice. Because it seems to me that when it comes to the room here, as well as those who follow us online, lots of you seem to be facing all kind of issues pertaining to media education. And we keep doing it, yet we keep wondering, does it make any sense? Maybe we can do it better. Or maybe we commit all kind of mistakes given media education because we always assume it's going to be a good thing. Whenever we hear about media education, it is needed, so it has to be good. But a rhetorical question somewhat is maybe we can do some kind of media literacy that is going to be harmful. Just like you take all kind of prevention-based actions that are wrong, the same is true about media literacy. So we need to reflect upon that. Especially given the fact that media literacy or education seems to be a buzzword, yet sometimes it is not well thought over. We have a lot of political things going on at the level of EU, and they always claim that it is pivotal, it is critical, especially for the young generation, because we have identified a number of threats and needs. But please note that what if media education goes out of all kind of official documents and ends up in all kind of official education at schools, kindergartens, as well as when it comes to all kind of informal places, when it comes to young generation education? Only then something can take place or not. So we have to take one step lower. So basically, when it comes to media education, it seems to be a topic that has a lot of silent areas that are not widely discussed. Sometimes people claim that it is critical, but then we can also hear some voices that it will not be a universal solution to everything. If we fail to regulate the internet, if we fail to work tirelessly, if we fail to enforce some solutions when it comes to major tech companies so that they reduce access to some content, especially for younger audience, or if they reduce the way some algorithms operate, media education will be helpless, basically. So basically, it's not enough just to use media education on the internet. It has to be perceived only as one piece of the puzzle, only one of the elements. And last but not least, some even claim that what we need right now is some kind of revolution in the media education. It has to be thought over meticulously. Very often we go about it and we fail to measure the effects. So we fail to verify whether it works. We do something good, we demonstrate the scale of operation. It was performed on a given group of people. Some people received certain content, and we just check whether they liked it or not, but we fail to verify if it works. Or we just feel that it works, but not sufficiently. I've been dealing with counteracting cyber violence, but if we take a look at the statistics in this field, no major breakthrough occurred. So probably what we need is some kind of change, given media education generally. We need to be watching it closely, we have to adopt a critical perspective, and maybe we should start doing it differently. All good. Please take a look at the number of problems. Who's supposed to be the media educator? The very first association is the teacher. We do have some digital skills, competences that seem to be really commonplace. The so-called DIG-EDU, digital education, talking about the digital competences of teachers, what is that they're supposed to be capable of in order to be able to educate in terms of media in general nowadays. But maybe it's not only about the teacher or educator. We have to also consider peer education, where young people keep learning from one another. And actually it is already being instigated, even if we fail to address it formally. And media education is also something that law enforcement deals with. We have the entire system of legislation. We have police officers approaching schools, lecturing on competences. And very often we also hear that media education goes far beyond a simple approach when it comes to the internet. And very often a lot of librarians and the entire community of librarians also starts exploring it. And additionally, maybe we need a peculiar profession, people who will basically serve as media educator, people who will deal with it not as a teacher or as a police officer doing some additional task. Maybe we generally need some kind of media educators, but who is supposed to act as one, and where are they supposed to operate? Last but not least, an example of the Google program. We have major tech companies also dealing with it, and they are the ones who claim we provide media education, we provide the right structures. At the same time, we educate our own users so that they can use the internet safely and securely, and then in a creative manner. Very often, if we talk about all kind of embedded algorithms, media education can be performed automatically, not by someone, but by something. So it's going to be embedded, and it will no longer be personal. And it's all good. If you want to discuss it, we could talk about it, who's going to perform it, but we have better and more interesting topics to discuss. So how to go about it? Should it be a separate, isolated topic, a separate subject or separate set of classes? Media education, or should it be embedded in all kinds of things, let's say Polish language, English language, maths, biology or nature? This is all feasible. We have a special program for the purposes of disinformation, but maybe we could teach it during a biology class or a nature class when we talk about viruses, vaccinations. Maybe this is the right place to also educate in this term. When it's closer to something more practical, it is far more approachable. But another interesting fact is that today we heard one word very often, namely a threat, and we have identified all kinds of threats. We have special wide skills program and some others. But please note, media education, is it only about educating about threats? Not only. At least when it comes to theoretical level, so I can do it against something, against cyber violence, against disinformation. So why do we need it? In order to combat all kinds of threats, especially cyber threats. But then we also have to consider the other side of the coin, using media creatively for the purposes of creating someone, build some kind of community, do something good. And we know they can be put to a good use, but what about practice? What we miss is some kind of equilibrium. We lack some kind of balance. So what seems to be dominating is this risk-based paradigm. We do a lot of media education in order to defend ourselves against what's wrong. But just take a look at the titles of the programs: against cyber violence, against something dangerous, against. But what we don't have are programs that would teach something positive, something that is not directly linked to all kind of threats, but something that help you grow, develop. They teach something good. We even analyze it. We conducted a special research, and teenagers say that whenever somebody talks to us about the internet, they always mention the threats, and they never mention the potential. And one thing does not contradict the other. We don't have to choose whether to fight all kind of threats or do something good, but we need to strike a perfect balance. Right now, we completed a major study in wide skills in 6 countries, and I analyzed the data, and you can see vividly that the same young people who seem to be social activists on the internet, they are involved in a lot of groups. The very same young people, not different ones, they can notice the threat easily. And when we focus only and exclusively on what seems to be wrong, our perspective seems to be kind of narrow-minded. It is limited. And we fail to address what is also important. So we need to consider media education that is for the benefit of something and not against something. So how to go about it? How to go about media education given all kind of age groups? Somebody could say, at the earliest stage possible. But I keep analyzing all kind of programs of media education. For instance, when it comes to younger children, sometimes we do it, but it is not adjusted to their developmental stage. So we approach kindergarten children and we expect them to know how to think critically and assess the quality of the information source. We have to wait for it, for the right psychological stage when it's really possible. But some people think, okay, it is critical, so let's start as early as possible. Let's teach critical thinking in the kindergarten. It is feasible, but it has to be adjusted well to a certain developmental stage of a given child, right? And last but not least, an instrumental question, because obviously we do things that are important. For instance, then disinformation, as we know, it's really critical. According to all kinds of studies, a lot of young people cannot tell the difference between commercials, advertisements, and what is true. Some people claim that the first results displayed in a search engine will be true. If you work with a classroom, all of a sudden it appears that 90% of teenagers use Wikipedia and they don't know where it came from, who is the creator of it. And if I am to ask a question on the scale of 1 to 10, whether it's a credible source of information, it appears that in one classroom they say it's 6, 7, 8, 9, but nobody who gives a score 1, 2, 3, nobody can justify with one word how come that their assessment is 0 or 10. So this gives you a big picture when it comes to their criticism, but in more practical terms, all of a sudden, this is not an easy task. But I'm going to ask one question. We keep dealing with all kinds of things that are absolutely pivotal, included in both social and political agenda, and very often they seem to be well-founded. But maybe we should ask another question that is perfectly justified. Maybe we should deal with different elements when it comes to media education that we disregard because they are not really fashionable. So, do we really deal with what seems to be of utmost importance? Because basically there's a lot of hype and some issues have been promoted as problems. So this question seems to be well-founded. It is all good that we started dealing with the so-called patho-content when it comes to media education, but according to many studies, a lot of people who actually saw it, because for instance, mass media uses it a lot. So yes, I should try it. We don't have a lot of users who do it on a regular basis. We have a lot of young people and we assume that they do it on a mass scale when it comes to watching patho content, but actually it could be just the opposite. Let's take a look at the agenda or the timeline. Right now, what we are experiencing is some kind of a revolution. Telephone, 1982, radio, television, all kind of inventions. Already back then, we had some media education. We talked back then about mass media. Who should educate? What for? Maybe we are manipulated or we are being provoked. So different problems back then, and then the internet emerged. People say that it's a novelty, but actually it was back in 1974, at the end of 50s actually. The internet was already fledgling in technological terms. Some people claim that adults don't know the first thing about the internet, although those who are already parents were born in the times of the internet, yet they keep claiming they are rookies when it comes to the internet. So the world keeps shifting, yet our mindset seems to be at a standstill. But let's take a look at what seems to be going on right now. Right now, we seem to think that media education boils down to the internet. But when it comes to media education, should we be dealing with mass media or the internet? We know that mass media is becoming more and more convergent with the internet when it comes to all kind of social media, with a lot of broadcast from television, from the press. But one question arises. Maybe something is lost on the way and we are no longer interested in exploring media education pertaining to the television that seemed to be critical before. But indeed, right now we do have the internet that is mobile. You can have it in your pocket. Even when it comes to our study, New Kids Online, several years ago, mobile was only an addition. And right now, when it comes to a young third of young people, for them the only option is the mobile internet. So we are talking about the media that seems to be embedded in human beings. It is difficult to separate being online and offline given the rate of mobility. It cannot be no longer separated, and actually we are talking about the media that seems to be very powerful thanks to the way it has been structured with its algorithms. Very often we claim that those algorithms keep doing something to us, but it works both ways because those algorithms keep learning us. What we do seems to be a driving force, like a fuel for algorithms, and yet they offer the internet to us that seems to be adjusted to us. It matches us and our behaviors. But it's not that we are perfectly innocent, just sitting in front of our screen and algorithms start broadcasting. Now, once you realize what an algorithm is, you realize that algorithms mean that it's not only that the internet affects us, it works both ways. What if all of you were to take out your computer? When it comes to your YouTube newsfeed, you could see different videos because it is all customized, because we are all different. This is also interesting because actually, for one thing, it is essential when it comes to media education. And indeed, we have to play different roles. We are no longer just content recipients, but we act as broadcasters, as a participant of all kind of social community. And this is a different type of media, and this seems to be a genuine revolution because in the case of television, that was not a social media. It didn't create any kind of social community or environment for us, and here we are dealing with something that we are entering, and it means some kind of social relations inside, which is something brand new on an unprecedented scale. And this is pivotal. And also, we tend to talk about the internet that right now it seems to compete with the traditional ways of upbringing, like a traditional school. Right now, it's like a competitor that is far more powerful than us in the form of social communities, which is not really true because we as adults also participate in those internet communities. So we also participate in their life and influence it. But what we need to do is to gain some kind of an insight into those phenomena. And on one thing, we seem to be understanding it all, but seemingly only, because when it comes to all kind of media education programs, we fail to really understand the reason why young people use it. We failed to recognize the problem. We just claim to be talking about lofty things. One example, I saw a lot of programs, and we basically want to demonstrate to young people like a certain algorithm. Okay, this is an algorithm, and I can use it in order to verify everything you can find on the internet. It seems to be like common sense, but is it feasible? I mean, what about those educators? Do they really walk their talk? Do they have that much time at their disposal? Do they verify every single thing? I highly doubt it. So this is not a realistic piece of advice that is down to earth. That can be put into practice. So another example, maybe we could talk to young people and tell them what kind of content they should verify and when to activate those protection mechanisms. So it all sounds very interestingly. I could explore the details, but I'm trying to stick to the time given. Basically, my ultimate objective is to basically stir up things a little bit so that it sounds thought-provoking and that we start undermining certain things. I keep doing it because I continue to be the author and co-author of a kind of programs, for instance, Impact program about cyber violence. Right now, together with the foundation, Dajemy Dzieciom Siłę, we keep wondering how to change it so that it's even better, smarter. What has changed over the last decade? When the very first version came into being, what should be done differently so that it is more efficient. And when we talk about cyber violence, a wonderful piece of advice, if something is wrong, you have to report it, but it fails to take into account completely that given all kind of social communications, it costs, and we never discuss it with teenagers, that if you report it, it will come at a cost.
Czy coś, mimo że będziesz mieć kłopoty?
You will help someone even though you have problems as a result. But I have an advice. If you have a problem, just notify about it. That's not that much, is it? Not enough, maybe. If you cannot discuss everything, but let's touch on some. Firstly, a most simplest one, it seems. Media education is development of digital skills. Well, how do we understand that? We have young people. Let's assume this media education is for young, but that's not only true, because it could be for older people. Let's not talk about everything, though. So we start with media education, and then we check how it works, how the program works. People need better digital skills. I am to improve my headset. Understood. So we need the digital skills, upgrade them, increase them. So which are the skills are really digital skills? I have many definitions, and we use various things in various studies, and catalog is a broad one of those skills. So the first question is, which do we pick? All of them? Well, there are so many, we won't make it. Some? On what basis then? Do we choose the same for all groups? Do we build that in the same skills in teachers, younger and older students, and so on? So let's maybe the general development. Some 15 years ago, if we were to speak about that, the skills were dominated by IT people who defined them. I can record, I can service some software, I can edit texts, use and for most people this remains the skills. However, so the education is focused on teaching these skills, technical skills. When you go to work, you will use them. But that's a bit of a cul-de-sac. This is really a very limited part of these skills. Secondly, these change rapidly. Even the software applications, even if you teach them, tomorrow you will need additional skills or different skills. And what's most important, these are really ever less important with the AI. When we use natural language communication, we won't need to service any programs. We will just need to define or define our need to the tool, the AI tool. Of course, so that would be a narrow definition. Let's look further. What are the skills that when we studied young people in this is why skills, this is surveys that lead to recommendations and so forth. So there are technical and operational, information and navigation related skills. There are communication related, contact with other people, creative. So I create something online and present this. And there are the IT programming skills. These are ever less important. But look at an example of our survey, how young people look at the technical operational. They assess themselves as poorly. 2/3 say that they can change the skills of primary settings. And I will add to this and say these are supposedly technical, but impact greatly on our experience of the internet. So you can encounter some surprising negative things. So you don't need to learn that, we assume. Well, I need to tell you, this is where most of media education actually doesn't touch that, because they assume young people know this. Digital hygiene, let's take that. Look at the third line, third question. Only 3/4 of the young people tell us that they can close or block off unwanted information or advertising. Well, if they don't know how to do that, firstly, they need to understand they don't even know that they can do that. So first information, let's put this operational technical level or module in that. Let's not work under the assumption that that's something that they know about. And do you know this? This is well known. Etienne Clyde, French astronomer, put this online saying that this is Hubble, photograph from Hubble telescope. Then it turned out to be a salami slice. And many people have really shared this and told everyone that this is a picture of Proxima Centauri. Well, our most recent study demonstrates a dire level of young people using fake news information. Then there is a module about physical false news about health, physical and mental health. Because young people look for these types of data information online. Well, but then if asked if they took something from the internet and then took wrong decisions, negative decisions, well, the numbers are high. So that's a serious thing. Note, if you wanted to be a 14-year-old bodybuilder, and note what you can learn about it from on the internet. Note how young people know algorithms, understand. We tell ourselves that it's important. Well, 14% of them say that they get what they look for on the internet. And 25 are not sure, so they don't really know how this works in this information. So, well, if something has been on my post, then 28 say that it's true and it's the latest information. They don't understand that they work in an environment that works somewhat differently. And it's basis to understand that, so that this could impact me in a controlled way. We often say the artificial intelligence work, but this is the most recent survey of ours. You don't see this. We asked the 1,000 teachers of what young people are afraid of to become, let's say, dependent, to be manipulated. The clarity between real and virtual world will be unclear, and we are afraid of this. This is our fears. But many of these worries are very useful because they ring true. But then how do we teach? How do we do this as a basis for teaching, particularly in international interaction with AI? Well, let me put this. We speak a natural language with artificial intelligence as if we were talking to another human being. So we would tell that to a person, and we tell to AI. So we are becoming heuristics, in other words, skill of formulating your thoughts, of communicating your thoughts. If someone speaks the language fluently well, will be well educated in the media if you use generative AI. Let me show one final thing in my one final 3 minutes. This is the NASC study, research study that we did as part of this study, completing the report, rich material. And this is a model that I thought up. Look at in face of the problems that we face, how to use this in education. How many things, well, education could be our page or supporter. In other words, find me for teachers, develop something for less intellectually sophisticated student to teach this, or prepare for me 10 questions, or do this or that, or simplify this text for me for a child that doesn't know Polish language well, a foreign child, foreigner. So we're starting to think how we can use this AI to be a useful provider. Young people use that skill because they tell them, write a thesis for me. How can they really learn another language, foreign language? There's lots of work to be able to go into the AI used by students and to do something so that they learn something real. If we are late, that really sounds the end of education. I didn't find a better way than statue. There are ethical problems. How is this AI, what has it been taught? Has it been manipulated? And this is a very strong tool. It carries many ethical problems because, and I cannot limit myself to teaching how to use it. There are weak points there, ethical, legal issues in use of this tool. And finally, this is tool for communication. I remember when we presented this at conference and said to ourselves, this is great because it provides great email responses. Do we want to hand over our communication to that tool? I remember one question, and one response was, a teacher said that mother of the student got me mad because they wrote a very angry email to me. Then it turns out it was written by AI. And finally, AI could be administrative and technical assistant to us, relating to privacy and so on. Seriously speaking, this tool makes us all, whether you've been engaged in media education for past 20 years, makes us novices. We need to relearn everything we know. In final statements, let me tell you that that's how I see it. Education is different for different groups. Children, special needs children, for example. The report tells us that children, intellectually limited children, need another media education. So it's not one for all, and it's like we know it from Cinderella, that you cannot fit one shoe on all feet. Where we speak about media education, but slowly but surely it needs to be part of all education. And with AI, the regular education becomes AI education. And many of us are media educators. I think I've made things complex for you, so I've achieved my objective, I believe. But if we want to do it well, let's not simplify the subject matter for ourselves. Thank you very much for that great presentation. You've touched on a number of important aspects. What stands in mind for me, it's not just a response or protective shield, as a media education might be, but is to teach proactive stance, help shape a citizen that's bold and understanding and literate in media. There is a second that we can commit on one question to address to Professor. If you do have that question, I invite you to ask them that question. Is there anyone in the audience interested? I don't see anyone. Hence, I would invite our next speaker, Madam Professor Elena Rotaru of Western University of Timișoara in Romania. Madam Rotaru is an expert that has studied communication, including ways of using new technologies by children and young people, the media skills, various communities, digital, also looks at fake news, digital civic activity. Madam Professor, we invite you to the stage.
This is the right one? Okay. Dzień dobry. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Thank you very much for inviting me here in your conference, make it clear. And I would like to congratulate you for the organization and for keeping, let's say, up to date a dear and old field already. I have been wondering, since I have heard the presentation of Professor Pyżalski, that probably an entire day wouldn't have been enough for the two of us coming from the academics to talk about media education. And also, I have been wondering again about that our scientific record actually grew up with media education field, because we have started looking to this domain, to this field, before the internet era. And we are still wondering, and we are still discussing and debating about the wonders of this domain and of this field. So probably we'll go retiring and still not finding all the aspects and not coming into the same conclusions as we are. Why? Because it's a field that is correlated with the technology, and as we can see today, the technology is actually changing so fast that it's barely difficult for us to keep up, even on the epistemical level, to the new challenges and to the new effects that media and the entire universe of media is having upon us. This introduction, short introduction, is about some of my interest, academic interest, scientific interest on the field of media education, but also I am a practitioner. And my presentation for today, it's about those consequences and those answers that I have been trying to find out why in some countries the level is so low about the media education, and why and how other countries within the European Union space are in a very high position. Despite this, let's say, frame of my presentation of today, as I told you, I'm a practitioner, and the first media education programs that were implemented for teachers in the undergraduate level were elaborated by, let's say, a small group of professionists coming from the non-governmental sector and from NGOs. And unfortunately for Romania, they are still the same and they are still there. And this is how I have come to cooperate with Save the Children Romania, because we have been trying to address the large target of teachers of undergraduate level from Romania, and I will also present my approach to this type of, let's say, a pragmatic, practical approach about how media education can be effective and can be efficient. So this is my cooperation about my dearest friends from Save the Children Romania, and the entire work that they are doing there, and the impact that these kind of programs are useful. And also, I am sorry, and I will, even if I am trying to be optimistic, my presentation for today is not so, let's say, fascinating, and it's a little bit pessimistic or drastic. Again, Professor Piecak, we have the same problem. We have to deal with technology. Okay. So, few points about my presentation for today. The entire philosophy and the entire approach for media education standpoints, key points, were targeting the kids. And we have always, and I'm focusing on Romania apart because this is what I know best, of what are the effects on kids. What is the efficient method of being, let's say, preventive and challenging and answering to the challenges of risks, of failures, of different type of effects on kids, but we were the adults. We were the one that we didn't actually know how it works. We were, and some of us still are, the one that had that attitude of helicopter mother, that wants to survey, to control, and not trying actually to immerse into the kids' life and into the kids' needs and into the kids' challenges. So the last few years, and Professor Piasecki probably he will agree with me, we have concentrated on disinformation, starting from pandemia and COVID-19 stress, and infodemic, and all those concepts that were constantly coming into our points of view. Now, with the war in Ukraine and everything what is happening around the war, including Israel and Hamas terrorist attack in Israel, again, disinformation and fake news is new and is on the agenda. And we have concentrated to tackle, like a recipe, some points about how to counteract against disinformation, how to make the kids aware about fake news, deep fake, malinformation, misinformation, and all this type of agenda and of course of behavior. But we are less concentrated on the type of mediation, and we have been less attentive, we less pay attention to the type of adult and parental mediation. The discussions that have been taking place or not inside the families, inside the groups. And as my colleague from Adam Mickiewicz University previously tackle this issue, I would like also to underline this fact that even if they have a high technological competencies and the technical competencies is very high, we don't use this type of competencies in our relation with the kids. We just ask them, please show me, how can I do this on Instagram? How did you do that? And they are bothered, but we don't submerge and we don't dive into exactly what type of behavior, how do they address the process and the content. Don't stay on the phone, it's too much. It will make some, I don't know, mental problem or medical problem, eye problems to your activity. You should stick to lessons. But actually the parents and the adults, they do not understand that they are doing more. And we are also doing more than having fun on the internet or using smartphones. Then another issue is that of digital divide. Digital divide in terms of less fortunate people and less fortunate kids that do not have access to the last model of iPhone 15 or to the last tablet or to the last Apple, I don't know, tablets or notebook, is different from those that are more fortunate. And their parents and their schools and have the technology and the right applications and the right softwares that they can be creative and they can encourage them to be proactive and to be, let's say, digital citizens prosumers. Thus, this digital divide, which I'm sure it's also met here in Poland, in Romania, for example, is very high. It's a divide between those that are rich or medium class and the other one that are poor. It's a divide between the rural area, which even if they have internet access, they don't have the technology, and the professors and the teachers from that area don't have the minimum skills to approach the curriculum and the content in the new levels, and the one from the big cities or from the small cities where we have almost everything, but not even there. And the last point here is about intergenerational cleavage. I mean here about the senior, the adult, and the youngsters, and the children. Because in my opinion, and I stress out that in several articles, if we don't understand their lives, and we don't understand not the so-called snowflakes generation, the Gen Z generation, we will lose them. We will be like the citizens of Hamelin in Grimm's story. We will wake up and our city will be empty because we didn't pay sufficient attention to this new age pan flute youngster that will attract our kids and they will disappear from our lives. Again, to legitimate my point of view here, I will address some data and statistic about what is and how is media literacy in Romania right now, and of course, media education and media literacy training programs From a special point of view, there is only the ones that were accredited by the National Ministry of Education in Romania from the period 2017, when the first media education program was formally recognized by the Ministry of Education and was implemented in Romania. Bear in mind, we have started discussion about media education since 2005, 2010. And the first recognized media education program that addressed teachers' training was in 2017. And some discussions and implications in my point of view, and probably addressing your question. Okay, some of you are also familiar with the European Media Literacy Index from the last year, 2023. I will not stress very much because I know our colleague will explain you the index and how it is constructed. But what I would like to underline here is the fact that Romania, for example, is in cluster 4. And Poland, if I remember well, is in cluster 2. I will not address the fact that there are some countries like Finland, for example, and Denmark in cluster 1 with 74 or 73 points regarding how this index and how this media literacy index is made. Why? Why those countries, especially from, let's say, southeast part of Europe, are in the 4th cluster? And why Romania, for example, even if there were some shy tentatives to embrace and to address media education programs, actually decreased in the last few years. We were 3 years ago in the 3rd cluster, now we are on the 4th cluster. And it's another point that my colleague addressed. We have been wondering why, even as I told you so shyly, we cannot see the effects. And how can we measure actually these effects? Is media education a solution? Can we still perceive it as a silver bullet, a magic bullet that will address all our fears, or our challenges, all our needs? Or we should have been looking, or we should look at it in a different manner, in a different way. And this is why I have started to look what are youngsters, what are kids, and what is people doing with media education. And one of the points that we have been looking at in the last years is about news, of course, disinformation, as I have told you before, as I have mentioned before. And what are people doing with media? As you can see in the 1st cluster, yes, the young generation is not actually so much interested in news as the seniors are, yes, in 55 years old and 64 years old. It's a sort of decreasing or increasing, depends on the way you look at the chart, on interest in news. The next slide, is social media a source of news? Yes, for younger generation there is, because they are on the online environment. They are deeply submerged in the virtual online environment. And mostly all their sources of information are coming from social media and from the internet. Except, and now you can see also a decreasing, except for the adults and the seniors, that their main interest is on television and on traditional type of media. So the cleavage is one point that you can observe here. The ones and the sources of information are different. I don't know if you are having kids or if you are asking your kids in your classrooms if they are watching TV. Probably only the streaming channels, you know, on Netflix and so on. They will not open or open the TV set for news or for watching a film or a video. They will already have their small devices and laptops. Why and how, which are the main sources of using the internet? The same, and one of the clues is that everybody has the same interest in finding the information. So the main reason why people are in the virtual line is for finding information. Then you can see the differences thing. Contact with friends and families, so these are the youngsters that are watching videos and shows, listen to music. And if you go to the older generations, the gaps you can see because they will follow the news and events instead of listening to the music. Why? Because they are listening to the radio. They are on the traditional media, they are not on social media. Research brands, find new ideas and so on. And of course, follow news and events is one of the latest points of interest for the youngsters. Why is this important? Because if you don't understand, as I told you, what and how their behaviors is online, we cannot address the right content and the right didactic strategies and the right programs, so we can go to our kids. The short presentation of what has been happening in Romania regarding media education training programs is, if you want, something that the European Union is looking for when they are doing and elaborating their strategies and their policies: grassroots information. So we have been started, and still we are doing, grassroots type of media education program, because there was no policy, there was no law, there was no, let's say, regulation started from the ministry, Romanian Ministry of Education, to address the challenges and the provocative elements of training and having trained new generations of youngsters over the time. The only one that have been recognized and accredited by the Ministry of Education were those programs, 5 provided by NGOs. You are seeing there, the Center for Independent Journalism, Save the Children Romania, Creative Research, Pro-Eurocons, and Eurocommunication Association. All of them are NGOs, and all of them have been trying to address this challenge with their own means and with their own financing. It is only one recognized program that teachers can apply, and of course getting, ECTS, probably professional credits for having trained and having been trained during a period of time. Only one is in a small county in Romania, in a partnership between Active Watch and Didactic Personnel House of Training. This is a small county near where our colleagues are coming from, Tulcea, that is in the east part of Romania, in Brăila. We don't know exactly how and how many teachers were actually trained. We have an approximation. Imagine that the entire teachers and undergraduate level in Romania is around 500,000. We estimated that during this time, we have only few thousand that were trained and that were familiarized with the content and didactic strategies of having media education within their specialities. And of course, there were some EU financed programs on different calls of application in different projects. Some of them where we have the academia, some of them were from other NGOs, and some including European networks that address media literacy and media education. But as I say, they are very good, they are wonderful, as long as the financing is. Otherwise, they will stop and everything will be nice and clear. We'll have the results, we have the deliverables made for the EU, but everything stops from there. So we don't have a post-tracking, provocative and counseling or mentorship about what has been happening afterwards with our target groups and what are their needs further on. For those 6 training programs for teachers, I have been analyzing them and I have been trying to see from the perspective of the paradigm of media education, how were they elaborated, how they were constructed, and which are the key elements that the content creator have been looking at. And for that, I needed a framework, and the basic framework that is still available, and it's still, even if it is debatable for us, for the scientists, but for the pragmatic and applied fact of media education is still working because it is very simple, is the one made of European Audiovisual Advisory Board in 2010-2011, and of course by Sonia Livingstone, David Buckingham, René Hobbs, input in media education field. Very simple: access, analyze, evaluate, and create, which tackles all the competencies, even if we are looking at DG Comp, even if you are looking to the basic media literacy competencies and skills. So I have been operationalized the main curriculum and the main competencies these programs have been looking at in the terms of use, of critical understanding, of communicating, and of course, the elements that are subsequent to those main pillars. And the 6 programs that we have been looking at and trying to see what has been doing and why the media competencies in Romania is so low, is the fact that most of them are focusing on the use part and on the media content. And these aspects, these dimensions are tackled through various specialities. I mean, even if you are a professor of languages, or even if you are a professor of biology, or of mathematics, or of social sciences, the main concern is regarding the use and the media content. Of course, I agree, and I have been saying that for a lot of time now, even in my PhD studies, where when I elaborated the first media competencies scale of measuring teachers' training, communication skills regarding that, is the fact that we can teach media education and we can address media education no matter the level of study that we are teaching at, from kindergarten till university, high school, and adult education, and no matter what speciality we are. Because as my colleague mentioned before, you can address pseudoscientific content or false history or, I don't know, astronomy or physics, even from geography or biology science till literature and languages. In languages and literature, you address media education by addressing how the journalistics are creating and elaborating the message. In biology or technical education, you can address by fighting pseudoscientific aspects. Let's be clear, the Earth is not flat. Yes, this is one of the most stupid things that we have been encountered. That means that those kind of dilemmas that someone has now, they didn't get the scientific type of education. Let's argue between us here in Eastern Europe. If you want to have a chat or a small experiment, if you want, take a Hungarian, take a Romanian, take a Polish, take a Serbian, and ask who are the first here in Europe, and you'll get a fight. Everyone was here in Europe the first, especially in the eastern part. Ask who is the most clear or has the most red blood, genetically speaking, here in Eastern Europe or all over the Europe. And again, different nationalities will come and say, we are the most European, we are the most clearly and red-blooded persons here. They didn't get the genetics. They didn't understand actually how their ancestors came here, and there is a lack of education in other parts of other disciplines. So this is our task, and this is field of media education and proper media education. Here is a few insights about how those training programs were elaborated. Once again, the people that made those training programs were not experts in media education. They were NGOs volunteers, they were NGOs experts, they were part of different trainings made in different projects at EU level, or as I told you, in EU networks. Some of them were also academics, and they stressed some points regarding their own expertise and their own field. And you can see this variety from media pedagogy to media instrument and practices and the role of a spokesman. This is a module that is taught as media education, the role of the spokesman and PR. And they have only 2 modules, for example, this program. So the variety is very large. We don't have a certain frame to address, and I'm avoiding to say a certain control. I'm avoiding saying control from the academia or from the experts in media education, which is for surely needed in a national level. So those programs have their own curricula, they elaborate their own didactic materials and their own textbooks. So we cannot say, even if we look, as I looked into, what they actually teach about media education and media competencies and literacy skills. So they all developed independently. They didn't cooperate with each other, or they didn't consult each other, so everybody became an expert in media education. What is also, as I told you before, let's say type of frame is about the stressing the preventive model and still ICT type of skills, but not digital skills, which I would have wished for to be tackled in the media education. We are still learning how to open a PPT presentation, or how we can, they don't do even Canva, or how can we make a Kahoot presentation or Kahoot game, but they don't actually learn about open educational resources and other applications and other programs and other softwares that can be much more easily and friendly used by the kids and within their learning process and learning activities. Of course, there is a problem regarding the human resources and actually the trainers. Only few of those NGOs, like Save the Children, have the possibility of training their own trainers. So we can have a common view about how can we address some aspects or which one are most to be addressed in our teacher training program. So they only look at the CVs of the trainers, and if they have graduated communication science program, bachelor program is wonderful, but most of them did not have even the bare knowledge about communication sciences, for example. Of course, some of them, about functionality and sustainability of this program, have to put some taxes, some fees for attending the trainings, and as I told you, some of them, because of their lack of human resources and also technological and administrative resources, they address a few or certain categories of teaching staff, like languages or social sciences. And as I stressed you before, I explained you before, it's not only there the media education need. So I'm getting to discussions and implication, the first part. Of course, there is a huge need, and I'm not afraid of using this word, that strategic planning for media education is mandatory in teachers training program in Romania. And here is something that I'm always discussing about, not only targeting the young generation, the kids. We need to address them through their teachers, because teachers also need media education as adults. Children and kids, and together with teachers, can become promoters of media education in their families, in their groups. They can be, if you want, the second or maybe the most central node of communication in their groups, in their peers, and they can be promoters of media education probably better than professors, than the teachers in some situations, and of course in their relations with other actors. And I mean here, even in their gatherings, institutional gatherings, formal gatherings or non-formal gatherings. In Erasmus, for example, programs in mobility, in institutions like churches, sports, or other things that they are having in their spare time. So those actors, those stakeholders also need to be taken into consideration. There were, because I couldn't be so upset about the national perspective and the national strategy in Romania. There was a small input a few years ago about making policy and a law initiative. Unfortunately, for us, for those that are promoting media education in Romania, was such a bad law and such a bad initiative that we have to do all our best and protest that law not to be approved by the Romanian parliament, because again, it was not properly made and it would have done much worse than gains for the teachers and for the Romanians. And the last thing that I am stressing is about, and this is what I have been doing for the past 4 years, a peer-to-peer model of education. Children are learning much well on this type of things that are very appropriate to them by their peers, by their colleagues. So for the last 4 years, I've been implementing peers to peers, equal to equal model of education on the model of trainers of trainees. And instead of me being old and probably boring them on this kind of issue, is not such effective. But if a colleague of them, even if it is with 2 or 3 years older than them, coming and explaining and coming and being trained about these strategic educational tactics and of course all the methodological aspect, the results were successful. So they were much opened and they could have discussed it very freely, and the content actually had an impact on them, and it was sociological measured. And the last point is that, yes, there are some superficial understanding of disinformation. I'm coming back to the main points that I have addressed at the beginning. Disinformation fatigue is actually functioning, and we can see it in the fact that, for example, in Romanian national polls, there is an acknowledgement, an awareness about the spreading of disinformation, but the fact-checking skills and the fact-checking process is less known. The fact that also, and this is very important for these electoral years, the fact that even if we know that everybody is addressing and exposed to disinformation, the fact that we don't trust media generally, and media news and media outlets, together with media institutions, is a problem, because media should have remain the watchdog of democracy, and it is the fourth power in every state. And if we are not trusting what media is doing, we are having a problem regarding imposing censorship, imposing lack of expression, and imposing in a national level other types of constraints regarding the media voice. And this is my final slide. Of course, we are like juries here, but Tom can be tackled. Thank you very much, Dziękuję. And if you have any questions, I will be here all day with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rotaru, for your presentation. Niestety nie mamy czasu na pytania.
Fortunately, we do not have time to ask questions, and we need to move to the next topic. We've talked about disinformation and focused about media education so far, but I'd like to invite now Madam Aleksandra Wójtowicz, who is a senior analyst at NASK and deals with disinformation, but also with regulation relating to that, and she will talk to you about how to prevent disinformation. Thank you, inviting you to the stage. Welcome, everyone. It is really a pleasure to see you here. Our guests, as you can see, my presentation at slide 1 is information about disinformation between education and prevention. And this is about the tools for verification of data and information. The objective of the presentation has two aims. One, so that you can learn the skills. So this is like a toolbox discussion. So when you think about something that you suspect being a fake, you should know what to use and how to go about checking that. Nothing is, of course, 100% effective, but still there are tools. My second aim is that at completion of this conference, say in this week, you could actually try and test these tools. In other words, find a suspicious piece of news and check it. So let's start. I was worried whether this presentation could work. I divide this into two parts, this presentation. One is technologies and techniques of disinformation, and second, education, media education. In other words, why not hear a bit more about that as well? So let me start first by have a common understanding of what disinformation is, what we're talking about really. So that's not the clue of the presentation. It's methodologies and so forth, but still. When we talk about disinformation, we need to understand that we're talking about activity that is intentional, systematically intentional, interference into the media sphere through fake news and false information. But we also have another things as misinformation, and that's information that is that may become important, that can in fact affect us, because actors of disinformation, persons and entities that form fake news intentionally, is a limited number. But users of social media are massive, which is why it is also important to understand the techniques and media education, because we, as we are not appropriately, let's say, prepared for attacking such information. We may think that something is a true information, and we are liable to share that information. So it's important to that we should have some skills and some tools available to us. Well, it's not society's responsibility exclusively to know how to deal with it, but we need to bear in mind that we are also not resistant to this information. As I said earlier, we firstly have specific actors, international services, politicians, trolls, false accounts intentionally formed in order to make broadly available such information and addressing to us as users.
Narzędzia weryfikacji.
So all kind of disinformation techniques. Let's stop for a moment. What kind of manipulation-based techniques are in place? Because they seem to be numerous, and this is by no means an exhaustive list. We could easily divide them into 5 different subsections. First and foremost, manipulation at the level of sources, so spoofing, concealing identity. And here, I can quote a good example. Perhaps you heard about an account with the name of PAP included in the name, Polish Press Agency. But when it comes to the real name of the user, it was totally different. So at a glance, it seemed quite legitimate, but in practical terms, it was an attempt of spoofing, something that you cannot notice that easily. Data tampering, a very standard method, all kind of false studies and pseudo-scientific magazines, or false authorities or false role models. Secondly, manipulation at the level of facts. false connections or relations, malinformation. I've already mentioned disinformation and misinformation, but here malinformation means providing access to all kind of real information, but something that is highly sensitive in order to smear someone, for instance. Next, something that is commonplace, false context. False pretenses, so presenting information but in a distorted picture or context. Cherry picking, that's another type. So selecting certain facts by hand as if so that they match the right information, but actually choosing at all the different contexts. Manipulating at the level of language, highly emotional language, as well as special expressions that act as a kind of a booster or consolidating term, an enhancer, meaning that we present information in such a way that is aimed at stirring up highly intense emotions, something that aims to consolidate certain things. For instance, have you ever heard about the process of Ukrainization of Poland, or when you talk about the phenomenon of vaccinations? And last but not least, manipulating with beliefs, anecdotal proof, gossip, as well as all kind of conspiracy theories, as you heard during the times of the pandemic. This proverbial uncle that had a son, and the uncle of this son worked in the military, so they heard, it was widely rumored that Warsaw is going to be closed down for 2 weeks. And image tampering, I'm not going to focus on this too much because this should be a topic for a separate presentation. So image tampering, image manipulation, something that we give a wide coverage to. We do have deepfake, but we also deal increasingly with cheap fake, a very simple type of image tampering. As an example, a narrative from the election, it surfaced in October 2023 during the election, and it assumed that the government back then is going to take the army to the street. But they actually uploaded the images from Israel. It was slightly tempered and manipulated. You could see the flag partially, but some images were totally unprocessed. You could see tanks with Israeli flags that were supposed to invade Warsaw. And last but not least, photo montage. So again, well-known methods of changing or manipulating images. But let's move on to some specific tools. Manipulation at the level of facts, false connections. So some kind of illusory dependencies that are not really connected with one another. Here you can see faces with a lot of skin changes. It looks like some kind of an acne or a yeast infection, so something obviously went wrong, but it assumed that it comes as a result of wearing a face mask. If you remember the times of the COVID, right now conferences look so much differently because we no longer have to wear a face mask. What can you do when you are dealing with image tampering? Simple image search using Google. Here you can see it, it is demonstrated. When it comes to the window, you can see the photo icon. And what do? You upload a photograph, and then there are results displayed always. No, it is not always the case, but it's quite simple. Most of us tend to use Google, so I could ask how many, but I assume that most of the participants of the conference. And it appears that, for instance, this given type of content has been fact-checked a long time ago, both in Polish and in English. The next type, photo montage, a very interesting example from the beginnings of the war in Ukraine. Again, seemingly in the city of Gdańsk or Danzig, one of the streets was renamed, and it was named the Street of the Heroes of Azovstal. Again, a lot of attempts to fact-check it. Our team basically contacted Gdańsk, and all of a sudden it appeared that it was far from being true. Actually, the street names look differently, as far as I know, but it is not common knowledge. You can also do it employing the so-called photo forensics. Again, let me underline that NASC cannot be held accountable for the efficiency and effectiveness of all the quoted tools, yet in majority cases they seem to be quite effective. Photo forensics. Again, we upload a file or a link to a given image and we can really find out what happened. And here you can see that the photo that has been shared is the result of photo montage. Cheap fake. You don't need any AI-based tools in order to change it. Just an ordinary standard phone and program will do. And it may seem that the participants of the conference are wearing the national colors of the Ukrainian flag. You can see the photograph presenting politicians. It has been slightly manipulated. Those colors are not credible because they don't look natural. Again, here we can employ photo forensics and the program will show to us that the colors have been changed, manipulated. The next thing, deepfake, something that is very common nowadays. Here probably we are dealing with a growing social awareness because we seem to be talking about it a lot. On the other hand, we are dealing with a growing number of deepfakes. What is deepfake? Highly advanced methods of image processing employing AI-based tools. With the use of this technology, you can obtain highly realistic content that can promote effectively all kinds of disinformation. Maybe you remember the photographs of Donald Trump escaping from the police, or Pope Francis wearing this cool winter white jacket. These are the examples of well-known deepfakes. And it was easy to notice them because they were like too good, too perfect. Deep, right? Something worth paying attention to. Although right now they are becoming increasingly credible. Again, something that you need to pay attention to because deep fake is not just the image. We can talk about voice recordings, video recordings. So when it comes to photographs, the easiest is, recordings seem to be more credible. My thesis is as follows: when it comes to social awareness about the photographs, it seems to be higher, but the studies are still taking place. When it comes to each and every type, we should pay attention to the following: lips movement, lack of blinking, unnatural change of hairstyle, an unorthodox body posture, 6 fingers or 4 fingers instead of 5 fingers in a photograph. It seems to be improving, but seems to be still problematic in all kinds of deepfakes. And another program that can come in handy, of course, it doesn't mean 100% efficiency. It is called AI or Not, this program. If you want to take advantage of this tool, you have to create your account. It is free of charge, and just like in photo forensics, we have to upload a given file, and you can find out what is the likelihood that it has been manipulated using AI-based tools. The next thing seems to be very popular. We could see it especially during the pandemic: false studies and pseudo-scientific magazines. So if you provide access to studies without the proper verification, the so-called predatory journals basically imitate all kinds of scientific positions, and as I mentioned, it was used to promote, disseminate information dedicated to coronavirus and the pandemic. Here you can see a bookmark, how not to be taken in if you don't want to be taken for a ride. I know that our break is coming, but you can again take a photograph. We have another tool, beallslist.net. Again, this is by no means an exhaustive list. It's a list of the so-called predatory journals. So basically, it's a list of all kinds of journals and magazines that potentially could act as predators. They disseminate, publish some kind of content without the right content verification. And when it comes to higher education, Somebody else will talk about it in detail, but it continues to be a problem, and it is taken advantage of in order to disseminate disinformation. False authorities, a typical situation, just like from a commercial or advertisement of a toothpaste. Seemingly, in the photograph, you can see a genuine doctor who looks very expert-like, very professional, but let's verify it using another tool by the name of TinEye. And this is a reverse image search tool. You can verify basic aspects free of charge. So you have to upload the photograph of this very professional looking doctor, but in reality, this is merely a model emulating a doctor, somebody who basically makes his living in this way. The next thing, those consolidating terms or enhancers, as I mentioned before, please know that using specific phrases, hashtags, expressions that are to be etched in the memory of public opinion, sometimes they are harmful. They are associated especially with all kinds of sensitive groups, so people who are not heteronormative, refugees, women, female refugees, in this case, Ukrainians and Ukraine as such. So stop to the Ukrainization of Poland. This is a flagship example. Maybe you heard about it before. Next, concealing your identity, pretending to be another institution. We have the State Electoral Committee, but all of a sudden, under this ape, you can see that the name is totally different. And this is by no means an account of the State Electoral Committee pretending to be a public person. Here, seemingly, it's supposed to be Janusz Piechociński, but actually, it's the account by the name of Rokita Diabeł, so Rokita Devil. I still do have some time. I'm rushing because I understand the essence of having a coffee break. How not to fall victim to disinformation? All the tools are really critical. I'm happy that you keep taking photographs in mass. Hopefully, you will be able to take advantage of one of those tools, given a kind of strenuous situation, when all of a sudden it comes to you that maybe what you see is an example of misinformation. It's impossible to take advantage of all the tools. Checkers are paid for. It means like a full-time job. So please just bear in mind that what we read sometimes is not true. And even if it comes from credible individuals, but seems to be highly emotional, just please be aware of the fact that there is this threat looming on the horizon. It sounds like a cliche, how not to give in. You have to read the whole content. It's not only about the headline. The headline usually does not reflect the essence of the entire content. Obviously, we don't always have a lot of time to read it all, but if it is pivotal, if it's an important piece of news, if it touches upon some important changes, let's read it all. Next, you have to verify the author and the authorship. If it's a genuine person or a fictitious character, just like the doctor from the previous slide, maybe it's like a random person. If it's a credible author, somebody that published something before. Next, sometimes you have content that turns out to be fake news, but basically just an old type of context, but the situation has changed. Sometimes the authors of this information harness it. They search for an article published 5 years ago and they quote it as an evidence of something that happened on the previous day. You have to check the credibility of a given text, website, and you have to assess it objectively based on what I have mentioned. For instance, there are no boosting and consolidating terms in the context, how social groups are presented in a given text. What is the role of media education? It has already been discussed extensively, so just several examples. How come that those tools are critical? How come that we should be aware of them? The report by NASC, Teenagers 3.0, indicated that the time that teenagers spend on the internet on weekdays amounts to 5 hours and 36 minutes every day, assuming that they sleep for 6-7 hours a day, and they also spend a lot of time at school. The internet means that there are a lot of threats in it, and it is also full of misinformation. So you have to basically be aware of the fact that when it comes to this period of 5 hours, you can fall into this trap. 44% of them believe that when it comes to the internet, you cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is false. So we seem to be defenseless, faced with some kind of disinformation and a lack of trust in respect of the internet. On one hand, it is positive, the lack of trust, because you are aware of your own bias and you realize the importance of verifying things. On the other hand, we cease to trust anything. 50% of teenagers are interested in the credibility of portals, of the authors that they follow on social news. Great statistics, great data. This indicates that we have something to work with. 50% of teenagers are interested in it. But what is their source of information or knowledge? How effective can it be? Again, it raises a lot of doubts, but again, a lot of room for improvement, a lot of things that we can do. And last but not least, it's all about critical thinking when it comes to the authors of both disinformation and misinformation. They also mention the importance of critical thinking, but after all, it supports the way we can combat disinformation. You have to ask the right questions, you have to analyze data and verify information. These are all critical skills for all groups, seniors, children, teenagers, and we will learn all the competences in different manners depending on what kind of social group we are dealing with. Some of them will be jeopardized with disinformation. More, I'm talking about underprivileged things, sensitive groups, so methods employed will be different, but generally these are three key issues.
Przechodząc do końca, bo
Moving on to my conclusions, because we are in the coffee break time, I'd like to express my appreciation, encourage you to profiles for verification, both Facebook and Twitter or X. They also provide information about new narratives and so on. So switch your verification and remember that responsibility for fighting false news rests not just on others, but on you as well. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for this presentation. There wasn't enough time for questions here. I invite you to the break now, and let us convene back here in the room at 12 noon. Thank you.